At the beginning of the movie, Mary appears on the scene. She is Peter's old friend and has now become a famous model, with her posters displayed all over the city. If you haven't watched Spider-Man 1 yet, make sure to watch it now so you can understand the story better. In other words, Mary is living a successful life, while Peter is struggling as a pizza delivery boy and rides an old, unreliable bike. Although Peter has incredible superpowers, he sees them as a great responsibility. However, these powers have caused him to neglect his personal life. He is neither focusing on himself nor finding a better job. Peter is always late, fails to complete his tasks on time, and even struggles with his exams. He forgets almost everything except helping people in danger. One day, Peter arrives late at the pizza shop where he works, as usual. His boss becomes furious with him and orders him to deliver the pizzas within 8 minutes. The shop's delivery promise is 30 minutes, but 22 minutes have already passed. His boss warns him that if he fails to deliver the pizzas within the remaining 8 minutes, he will not get paid and could even lose his job. Peter rushes out and does everything he can to deliver the pizzas on time. But before he can complete the delivery, some children suddenly need his help because they are about to get into an accident. Peter immediately changes into Spider-Man and rushes to save the children. After rescuing them, he quickly makes his way to the building, where he has to deliver the pizzas. However, while climbing the stairs, someone accidentally leaves several wet mops on the staircase, causing Peter to lose his balance and waste more time. As a result, he arrives 2 minutes late. When Peter finally reaches the customer, the woman angrily tells him that he is late and refuses to pay for the pizzas. Peter ends up losing his job. Things get even worse because Peter also works as a freelance photographer, taking pictures of Spider-Man. But because he is constantly busy helping people as Spider-Man, he cannot even keep up with that job. Soon, all of his sources of income begin to disappear. Feeling completely defeated, Peter heads to the university, only to discover that his lecture ended an hour earlier. His professor then warns him that his academic performance has been getting worse. If he continues like this, he could fail the year. Under all this pressure, Peter returns home to see his aunt. There, he suddenly realizes that it is actually his birthday, something he had completely forgotten. His friends Harry and Mary are also there to celebrate with him. They make his birthday special, and Aunt gives Peter $20 because she knows he is struggling financially. When Peter leaves the building, he sees Mary waiting for him outside. He becomes happy to see her and temporarily forgets all his problems. Mary asks Peter how his life has been going, and Peter admits that he is dealing with some problems, but he believes everything will eventually get better. Mary then opens up about her own life and reveals that someone else has entered her life. However, it is clear that she still has feelings for Peter and would like to stay close to him. But Peter already has too many problems of his own, and he worries that if Mary becomes part of his life, she will also have to deal with all his struggles. Instead of explaining his feelings, Peter quietly walks away. He eventually returns to his small apartment, which is in terrible condition because he has almost no money. His landlord constantly reminds him about the unpaid rent and keeps asking him when he is finally going to pay it. Because Peter has no money, he starts avoiding his landlord whenever he sees him. Meanwhile, Harry takes over his father's business and decides to help Peter. He brings Peter to meet one of his business partners, a brilliant scientist. Peter needs to conduct research on a scientist for a university project, so Harry arranges the meeting for him. When Peter arrives, the scientist tells him that he normally does not meet with students. However, since Harry personally requested the meeting, he agrees to speak with Peter. The two discuss the scientist's research and his work. During their conversation, the scientist's wife also comes over and starts talking to Peter. She asks him whether he has a girlfriend or life partner, and Peter says that he is single. The scientist's wife then jokingly suggests that Peter should explore poetry and romance. Peter responds by reading some poetry from the books around him. After the meeting, Peter starts thinking about Mary again. He wants to meet her and tell her that he still considers her a close friend. However, while heading toward Mary, Peter notices that police is trying to stop some thieves, but cannot catch them. Peter quickly steps in and helps the police capture the criminals. Unfortunately, his bike gets damaged during the incident. Peter then continues toward the theater where Mary is performing. But when he finally arrives, the staff refuse to let him inside because he is too late. Once again, Peter misses an important moment in his personal life because of his responsibilities as Spider-Man. Peter decides to wait outside the theater for Mary. After waiting for a long time, Mary finally comes out, but Peter notices that another one of her friends has come to meet her. Feeling awkward, Peter quietly leaves without talking to her. Later, Peter once again sees people in trouble and becomes Spider-Man. A group of criminals appears, and he immediately tries to stop them using his web shooters. But suddenly, his web shooters stop working. Peter loses his balance and falls from a great height. For a moment, he realizes that something is seriously wrong. His powers seem to have disappeared. Confused and devastated, Peter returns home feeling completely lost. He has no job, his bike is broken, his studies are falling apart, and he is struggling to pay the rent. It feels like every part of his life is going wrong at the same time. Meanwhile, Harry brings Peter to the scientist's laboratory, where the scientist is preparing to demonstrate his latest invention to the public. He then introduces another invention, a powerful robotic machine with 4 mechanical arms. The scientist explains that these arms will assist him while working on the artificial sun. To control the robotic arms, the scientist attaches the machine directly to his body. However, he also reveals something unusual. The mechanical arms have their own artificial intelligence and can think and act independently. The audience asks how he plans to control machines that have their own minds. The scientist confidently explains that he has developed a special control chip that will connect the robotic arms to his brain, allowing him to remain in control of them. He then begins the nuclear fusion experiment, but things quickly go wrong, causing metal objects throughout the building to be pulled toward the machine. As the fusion reaction continues, everyone starts panicking. Peter immediately changes into Spider-Man and begins rescuing the people trapped inside the building. Spider-Man heads toward the control system to stop the dangerous reaction. Finally, Spider-Man manages to destroy the control system and stops the dangerous fusion reaction. Harry is devastated because he had invested a huge amount of money into the project, and now all of that money has been lost. Meanwhile, the injured scientist is taken to the hospital, where doctors attempt to remove the 4 mechanical arms from his body. However, as the doctors begin removing them, the mechanical arms suddenly activate on their own. They use their strength to attack the doctors, leaving the room in chaos. The scientist eventually regains consciousness and discovers that the control chip he designed has been damaged. Without the chip, the robotic arms are no longer under his control and are now acting according to their own artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, Peter returns to the newspaper office. His editor tells him that he is throwing a party at his home to celebrate his son's arrival and asks Peter to handle the photography. At the same time, the scientist desperately tries to get rid of the mechanical arms. But the arms have begun influencing his thoughts and convince him to rebuild the damaged control chip. To do that, they need money. So they come up with a new plan to rob a bank. The scientist soon arrives at a bank to carry out the robbery. Coincidentally, Peter and Aunt May are already inside the bank, where they have come to discuss their housing problems. The scientist suddenly throws the bank vault door across the room, and it almost hits Aunt May. Peter changes into Spider-Man and confronts him. The scientist becomes furious when he sees Spider-Man and starts attacking him with the bags of money, swinging them around with his mechanical arms. A fierce fight breaks out between them. He begins attacking Spider-Man with pieces of damaged cars. Just then, the police arrive. The scientist grabs Aunt May. He then climbs up a tall building while carrying her. Spider-Man follows him and demands that he let her go. The scientist eventually releases Aunt May. Spider-Man immediately shoots his web and catches her before she hits the ground, while Spider-Man continues fighting the scientist. When the scientist grabs Aunt May again, she courageously fights back from behind. This causes the scientist to lose his balance and fall, giving Spider-Man another chance to rescue her. Later, Peter arrives at the party hosted by the newspaper editor. He is there to take photographs for the event, trying to continue with his normal life despite everything that has happened. As the newspaper editor's son comes downstairs with his fiancée, Peter is shocked when he sees her. She turns out to be none other than Mary. Peter is stunned to realize that his old friend is now engaged to the editor's son. Soon after, feeling heartbroken, he quietly leaves the party. By this point, Peter's Spider-Man powers have been gone for quite some time. Confused about what is happening to him, He visits a doctor and explains that he keeps having strange dreams about Spider-Man and feels like he is struggling with something he cannot understand. He also tells the doctor that his powers keep disappearing. The doctor advises Peter that if his powers are no longer working, he should stop trying to be Spider-Man and live a normal life instead. Peter decides to follow the advice. He gives up being Spider-Man and starts focusing on his ordinary life. Even when he hears someone calling for help, sees something strange, or notices someone in danger, Peter forces himself to ignore it and continues with his daily routine. Meanwhile, the scientist approaches Harry because he needs something to complete his dangerous project. Harry possesses the equipment the scientist needs, but Harry also hates Spider-Man. Peter is having lunch with Mary when something unexpected happens. His Spider-Man powers suddenly return. At the same time, Peter senses that someone is approaching from behind. The scientist suddenly appears and demands information about Spider-Man. He then kidnaps Mary, forcing Peter to become Spider-Man again. A fierce battle begins between Spider-Man and the scientist. Their fight eventually reaches a moving train. The scientist uses his powerful mechanical arms to increase the train's speed, turning the situation into an even more dangerous battle. Because of the scientist's interference, the train's brakes stop working. Spider-Man realizes that if the train continues moving forward, it will crash and put every passenger's life in danger, so he immediately decides to stop its strength until the train finally comes to a complete stop. The effort leaves Spider-Man completely exhausted, and he nearly collapses. Fortunately, the passengers catch him and carry him inside the train. Spider-Man does not even realize that his mask has fallen off during the struggle. The passengers are shocked when they see that Spider-Man is actually a young man. They pick up his mask and promise that they will keep his identity a secret. However, the scientist soon arrives and captures Spider-Man. He takes him to Harry, who is thrilled to finally have Spider-Man in his hands. Harry gives the scientist the equipment he needs for his experiment. When Harry removes Spider-Man's mask, he is stunned to discover that Spider-Man is actually Peter. Harry immediately asks Peter why he killed his father. Peter refuses to argue and tells Harry that there is no time to explain. Instead, he urgently asks where Mary is. Harry says that he does not know her location. Peter then explains that Harry has given the scientist everything he needs to restart the dangerous fusion experiment. Peter begs Harry to help him stop the scientist. Realizing how dangerous the situation has become, Harry agrees. Peter quickly heads to the scientist's location, where the dangerous fusion experiment is about to begin. As soon as he arrives, Spider-Man confronts the scientist, and another intense battle begins between them. The scientist refuses to stop the experiment, so Spider-Man finally removes his mask and reveals his true identity. He tells the scientist that he once taught him an important lesson. People with great power should use it to help others, not to hurt or destroy them. Peter reminds him that he is now doing exactly the opposite. Peter warns him that if he does not stop the fusion reaction, the entire city could be destroyed. The scientist finally realizes how dangerous his experiment has become and decides to shut it down. He tries to stop the fusion reaction, but the mechanical arms refuse to obey him. Mary also discovers that Peter is actually Spider-Man. She tells him that she had already figured out his secret earlier. Peter still refuses to let her stay with him. He tells Mary to go back to John because his life is filled with danger and problems, and he does not want her to suffer because of him. The next day is supposed to be Mary and John's wedding. However, John receives a note revealing that Mary has left. She has finally made her decision. Mary then goes to Peter's home, and the two are finally reunited. Meanwhile, Harry discovers the truth about his father. He learns that his father was actually the villain and that Spider-Man was never responsible for his death. Harry then discovers a hidden room inside his father's laboratory filled with dangerous weapons. He realizes that his father had secretly built these weapons to destroy Spider-Man. Instead of accepting the truth, Harry becomes determined to avenge his father and decides that he will kill Spider-Man himself. In the final scene, Peter puts his Spider-Man suit back on and returns to his mission. Once again, he swings through the city, ready to help people and save anyone in danger. And with Spider-Man back in action, the movie comes to an end.